They have been called aimless. The mainstream media has failed to see the genesis of their various plights. While you will hear many messages among the protesters, their grievances and calls for change all stem from a single source. The construct that moves this world is based on one person benefiting on the work of another, and the control mechanism is money, more specifically, debt. Want a house? Got medical bills? Would you like to have children? Do you need an education? You better be ready to be owned by a corporation. You better be ready to spend your life working tirelessly for someone else so that you can pay for these things. You better be ready to succumb to the worship of money and the pursuit of it. If the protesters seem aimless, it is because this paradigm finds different ways to steal your soul, put you in debt, and turn you into a slave so that you work for someone else. Need surgery? Expenses go up? Job go overseas? Yes, there are a million messages among the protesters, but they all have a genesis in that which controls and governs this planet. Fiat currency and fractional reserve banking, the military-industrial complex, and corporate politics. This is the moment where people either turn around and head back down the hill or push onward and upward. The point where the road splits and things become difficult to organize in your head, where people have trouble comprehending that such a system could actually exist behind our backs or right in front of our faces, and we would just accept it. Well, consider this. If a CEO, lawyer, or an accountant does not do all they can to work the system, while operating within the laws but to the greatest benefit of their companies, they can be held liable to the corporation, its investors, or they could lose their professional license to practice. In order to not jeopardize the same personal things that we all believe we're entitled to, they are required to deny, delay, and defend insurance claims because it's cheaper than paying the benefits you paid for. They must fire you and move your job overseas because our system forces them to. They must find loopholes and work the system, or they may lose their ability to feed their families. Our system is broken. Our leaders have been unwilling or unable to fix it, and we are beginning to wonder if the people with all the facts have realized that there are no solutions under the current paradigm. As bad as it would be to continue on polluting, plundering, and putting people in debt, a much grimmer possible future still exists. This next part may be a bit much for many of you. After the traitor on the BBC and the most recent IMF report, the number of people who believe that we may actually have a collapse are beginning to rival those of us timidly watching the sun and the earth and Elenin. If such a collapse comes, we pray that Project Bluebeam is not real because the entire world will be deceived. If a small number of individuals have been hiding a pure, clean energy, we will have no choice but to bow to it or die. It's easy to forget that while Elenin, the comet, is tiny and insignificant, during its conjecture with the sun on September 26th, we came the closest we have yet come to shit hitting the fan. That geomagnetic storm was almost enough to do it, and most of the world has no idea how close we came. It's at the point where understanding our future is too hard, predicting it is impossible, and planning for the results is depressingly futile in face of the truth. That today, the world still thinks we are all crazy. The corporations and politicians are beginning to use Occupy Wall Street for their own agendas, and despite a seemingly worldwide awakening, the majority will be blindsided by what really happens. This is our last chance, and despite our confidence and passion for a better tomorrow, it is becoming increasingly difficult to remain optimistic. If nothing happens, we remain imprisoned. If something happens, we may have no control over it at all. You would think our lesson would have been learned by now, but we keep coming back to it. All we can do is prepare our families and watch as the curtain splits. Watch the sun. Watch the protesters. Watch the money. Lights, camera, action. Be safe.